Hey friend, nice vids. I'm from Greece and I think you know what's going on around here. I need some tips on how to start preparing. Hi guys, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist. This is gonna be a quite lengthy video. If you haven't noticed it, just look around. I'm sure it's gonna be 40 minutes or more. If you don't have patience for that sort of thing, just stop watching right now. There's no way in which I can cover this type of topic in the length required without going, the extra mile. It's not gonna be a 1 or 2 minute video that easy to digest. It's gonna be taking a while. Why are people asking me about this? I got that letter, an email from a guy in Greece. I have some from people in Spain as well. I have an email here that I'm gonna be using. But first of all, I think it's important to mention, why is it that people are asking me? Well, in case you haven't been following my blog, which it's probably very likely, I've been blogging about survival and preparedness for some time now. I started when I was back in Argentina, where I lived most of my life. I started in the year 2001 when the economy collapsed in our country, in Argentina. I started getting involved in the different websites, forums of survival and preparedness, discussing, learning, as well as I was learning along the way. At that time, by 2001, I liked going camping, I liked going backpacking, I liked shooting as well. I liked all that nice stuff that everyone likes. What I didn't have was the necessity to get ready for something like that, for something like what we saw, a full economic collapse. It's quite different from what you often see discussed in videos and in books. It's quite different. You're not having any zombies coming your way. You don't have the looters with cannibal looters. You have looters, but they're generally not cannibals. You don't. There's a lot of fantasy involved. All right. In that time, in the year 2000, in December 2001, the economy in Argentina collapsed fully. We had been seeing recession. We had been seeing huge amounts of unemployment. We had an artificial exchange rate with the dollar that forced us to devaluate. It was pegged 1-to-1, and it was basically destroying our national industry. The idea that the peso had a certain value was completely artificial. So these are all things that a lot of people these days are identifying with. I started blogging about that. I started learning along the way. I had to change myself a bit as well. It changed the way I thought, preparing differently. I focused a lot on self-defense because that's what it was requiring. That was what was happening. All of a sudden, we went from having a country that was maybe not a first world country, but it was pretty close to one, was safe enough. While not as safe as other places, it was okay. It wasn't nearly as bad as some of the other countries in South America. So all of a sudden, because of the economic collapse, we started seeing lots of crime becoming more and more common. We started seeing lots of kidnapping, which was something that until then we hadn't seen. It was the kind of thing that you heard of going on in Colombia and other Central or South American countries that are known because of that type of activity. We didn't have any of that before. All of a sudden, people were getting kidnapped. You saw that the violence was increasing as well, little by little. As time went by, it got worse. But the first thing that we all noticed pretty soon was the kidnapping. I think that was what surprised us the most. And soon enough, people started hardening their homes. The burglar bars went up everywhere. You already saw many of them, but it got to a point where you wouldn't see a house in Buenos Aires without burglar bars, especially not in the suburbs. Even in other places, even in the nice fancy places, they all have a good amount of security. You don't have glass doors, you don't have windows without burglar bars being left open, you don't have people not leaving their doors locked. People that can afford soon moved into gated communities. So we started seeing all this, and I just rolled with it. I had no other option but to I guess what I'm trying to say is that 44 million of us went through the economic collapse of Argentina. I try to take it a little bit different. A few of us try to do something about it. Most people did at least something, because you just couldn't get away without doing it. If people didn't improve their home security a bit, they would be getting hit pretty fast. I mean, if you're the only guy in a neighborhood without burglar bars, that you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to be the one getting hit. In financial terms, same thing. We had 25% employment, maybe more. You know, it's hard to say when the government starts lying and not telling the truth, because they want to keep things calmed. So, talking about massive unemployment, you had people that had worked as professionals their entire lives, lawyers, accountants, people with good jobs, good paying jobs, suddenly they had nothing. It was troubled times, to say the least. I had people beg me for a job, knowing that I didn't have anything, just desperate people begging anyone for anything that they could find. You know, people that had been working as professionals for decades, you know, just begging for, you know, anything, driving a truck, anything that you know, here or abroad or anywhere, just tell me something that I can do because I'm desperate. Suicide rates went up. I'm mentioning it because I read it recently that it's suicides in Greece had gone up 40% in the last few years, and we saw something similar as well. So when you start learning about this more, you see that there's a similarity. The way economies collapse, in many cases, there's like a textbook manual that we saw it in Argentina, we saw it in Iceland as well. You're now seeing it in Greece and in Spain. I started blogging about all that. I'm gonna be leaving the links. It's in my website. It's www.themodernsurvivalist.com or www.fairfile.blogspot.com. I started blogging with that. For many years I blogged, I wrote in different forums. Eventually there was problems, or the forums had changed the ownership, or something happened and those writings got lost. Someone told me, hey, start a blog of your own. I told him, I don't know how to start one. They told me how to start one in Blogspot, and I started writing there. So that's been going on for, I think, since 2008. And I was also writing, I started writing about all this as soon as I realized that what was online and the different books that I bought back in 2002, you know, they were survival books that weren't helping me much, because they were survival, especially the ones that were for wilderness survival. I had absolutely no use for that sort of stuff. Yeah, I liked doing that. I liked going camping. I liked having my wilderness survival kit. I liked bushcrafting, but it really wasn't helping me at all. I might as well buy a book on cooking or painting, or, you know, it really didn't help me much. So all those things that I started learning, I started writing about it. I eventually published self-published my book as well, which it's been out since 2009, I think. This one that you see here, the Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse. Basically what I've been writing about, based on all those experiences, all those lessons learned along the way, the information that I found to be more useful. So yeah, this you can find it in Amazon as well. If you're in some other country, because some guys emailed me about it, that they're in some other places, it's for example in amazon.co.uk, you will not find it, but if you go into amazon.com, you can buy it and it gets shipped from US. It's printed in US. So because of all that, that's why people are asking me these sort of things. So it's I know there's tons of people in YouTube doing videos on survival, preparing, surviving for economic collapse. Sometimes you see them and you just, I mean, sometimes you see them and they're pretty funny. I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, but you notice that people sometimes they don't have, especially if they haven't had actual experience on this, or even if they didn't actually research what other folks had gone through in actual economic collapse or similar situations. You see that they're very far away from what you actually need, and you end up with stuff like this. You know, someone in Greece looking for you because you do have experience and asking you questions. So yeah, already 10 minutes into this, but again, long video, guys. Going to the actual email, the letter that I got, that I'm using this one because it has several good questions. Again, I got people from Spain. This is a map, folks, showing the unemployment rate, how it changed from 2007 to 2010, and here it is on 2010. It's a couple of years old, but pretty much showing the same thing. And you see the pigs countries: Spain, Italy, Ireland, Greece, Portugal. You see them struggling. You see them having the greatest amount of unemployment. I think that right now Spain is in 25. Some say 30%, even though the official number is a bit lower. Same thing for Greece. It's around those numbers. Italy, Ireland is doing bad as well. I'm for those guys of you that were thinking, well, you moved to Ireland. No, I moved to Northern Ireland, which is up here, which is part of the United Kingdom. Okay, so that's why I moved here and not here. Ireland, not that good. Northern Ireland, entirely different country, even though you are separated from all of the things that I didn't like that much about England and Scotland. So that's why I ended up here, and I'm still liking it, loving it actually. So it was a good call. It's a good example of how doing actual investigation, learning, gathering data, and coming up with good conclusions usually achieves good results. So again, this is a letter that I got from someone in Greece, and had several good questions that I thought would be of interest for you if you're living in any of these countries, or even if you are someone in US wondering what it would be like if it gets really, really bad. Hi Fairfile, my name is George. I'm from Greece, and I only recently came across your blog. It's a great blog, and although I haven't been able to read all your posts, like the simple yet effective way of describing things. Guys, I was thinking about something else. I mentioned my book, but if you cannot buy it, you can just go to my website, my blog, and there's tons of articles that I've written. There's thousands of pages of every possible topic you could think of. So if you're wondering if you're going to be liking the book or not, I'm going to be posting a link with a rather lengthy article that I wrote back in 2005, so as you have more information, or even if you cannot buy it, you can read that and have more information. And I'm always available. If you send me an email, I do get quite a bit of emails, so sometimes I can't reply to them all, but I do my best, and if you send an email, I'll do my best to answer it. If not, there's also in my website, there's a forum. You can post there as well. Someone will usually reply, or if not, I'm going to be there around as well. As you know, things are really bad here in Greece, yes I know, and they are getting worse, so I would like your opinion on a few subjects. I have already read a lot of your posts about money, employment, food, supplies, and the right mentality, very important, that you need. My questions are a bit more practical. For example, I would like to buy an alarm system for my apartment, but I have no idea which one to buy, and the one you advertise on the right hand side of your blog can only be found on Amazon.com, which doesn't ship them to Greece. I searched on Amazon.co.uk, which does ship and all of the products to Greece, and I'm up to this. Well, about alarms, I think it's a good question, because it's one of the important parts of improving your home security. When something like this happens, houses and crime goes up, houses become more of a target than they used to be. That's why I emphasize so much on it. People that it's evolution and its survival on its more basic level. The ones that are better prepared, they are generally spared. The ones that are more lacking in terms of security are the ones that get targeted the most often. There's lots of misconceptions. Some I've read some things that are so surprising. People saying that, well, if your house looks like a bunker, then it's more of a target, but because you have good stuff in it. Well, that's no, just no. It's not the way it works. Maybe in your own fantasies and delusions it is. Generally, the harder it is for a house to get broken into, the less likely it is. Burglars will usually go for the easier pick. Of course, that the better it looks, that's also appealing, but the harder the security, the less likely they are to attack you. Professional criminals do intelligence first. They research you. They they observe you for a while. If they see that you are too much trouble, they will probably go looking for someone else. It's a fantasy to think that because you have a well-stocked house, you're gonna be targeted first. I mean, nothing is giving you any guarantees. You might as well be. Now it's gonna be a more organized attack, and they're gonna be putting in the balance if it's worth it or not. Okay, so if you have tons of stuff, and if, for example, one of the things that we saw was that houses in country clubs were getting hit. All right, houses in private gated communities in Argentina were getting hit as well. That requires someone breaching the perimeter and having a good assessment of the private security inside. Yeah, sometimes they would do that, but you were far less likely to be hit if you were in a good gated community with good security than if you were in one that had a poor, shabby, just for show security. So it's all a matter of being as much of a hard target as you can possibly be, at the same time not showing off, not showing your wealth to the world in a way that anyone can notice it, being a bit more careful regarding that. So about the question specifically, what kind of alarm? Well, alarms, there's so many brands these days, and many of them are just the same thing with a different carcass, a different plastic casing, and a different name. Basically, what you want is motion sensors distributed across your house, and in the main doors you want the magnets that go on when you open them. But you want to cover your house as much as possible with motion sensor detectors. You also want to improve your perimeter by having lights that go on with motion sensor lights as well. That's usually a good deterrent. And the best thing is when the event doesn't happen at all, when you avoid the encounter entirely. This goes, guys, for getting mugged on the streets, when it goes for becoming a home invasion victim. It's always better if you avoid it. We can do lots of firearms training, fighting, and all that stuff. It's all great. Now, it's always much better if you avoid it entirely. I've avoided several times being a victim because of having a good level of awareness. Sometimes it got a bit more, closer or not, but a good level of awareness, avoiding it. You're not going to be having anything to brag about because you just weren't in the fight, all right? You just avoided it. If you manage to see someone closing on you and you take off, if you get into your vehicle fast and leave, you avoid it entirely. That's always the best outcome. If you think that you're going to be shooting people all day long and that's not going to be having an impact on you, if you think that's not going to be affecting you financially, you're completely nuts. I'm not even talking about the emotional side of this. I'm not talking about the actual stress and actual anguish that comes along in taking someone else's life. I'm talking about someone that is already mentalized in this and has, even if you don't have a problem with that, or if you're able to cope with that because you have a certain type of personality, of mentality, I think that if you think you're going to be getting away with this for long, you're not seeing the financial stress in having to defend yourself legally after each of these incidents. Some of the people that I know that have been involved in more than one shooting, they tell me this: it's a financial hazard, and usually when it's someone that defended himself during a home robbery, for example, they end up having to leave. They end up having to move because these criminals usually have family that are gonna be harassing you. You end up having problems. Sometimes when it's a rather bloody event, the reminder of it is too much for the family, and you have to leave as well. It's such a mess. So everything that you can do, like the alarms, the burglar bars, having the window films for making them shatterproof, everything that you can do so as to strengthen your house as much as possible is always good. That's always a good investment. So about alarms, just find something that has a good reputation, a good word on the street. Usually it's generally the same thing. You want something that it's going to be having at least a decoy and another alarm going off, the actual one, so they cannot deactivate that fast enough. It also requires a battery. You want one that has a battery in case it cut down the power. and you do want something with that makes a phone call to yourself and maybe to the police as well. Generally, it's gonna be you that's gonna be calling the police. So you first want the alarm to call you, to call your cell phone, and then you are the one making the actual phone call. You can improve this a bit more by having a system that uses a cell phone with a SIM card. So in case they cut off the landline as well, it still calls you on your cell phone. You can also combine it with cameras on your house connected to the alarm or connected to your computer, where you can actually use an app on your cell phone so as to see what's going on inside the house. So those are all things you can spend as much money as you want, but at least a basic alarm with a few motion detectors here and there covering the hot spots in your house, some sensors in the doors as well, and an alarm that has a battery and calls you on your phone. That's basically what you want. Also, if you don't have a dog, dogs are also an added layer of security. It's just that criminals don't like dealing with dogs. If you have maybe not the smallest dog on the planet, but it's surprising to see some criminals don't like any dog at all. Even if it's a small one, they don't want to deal with one. They don't like the animal barking. So it's one more thing that gives you an advantage. It's one more thing that's going to be kept in mind, and maybe go for someone else. Maybe go for some other potential victim. I would also like you to suggest a few other sites like Amazon that ship to Greece, Europe, not just USA. Well, you know, if you have on eBay, on the advanced, right next to the search box, there's advanced. You click on that and you look into the ones that ship to your country. That's usually what I do when I don't find anything in some other sites. I also look into used and second-hand stuff. Here in UK, Gumtree is pretty good. Back in Argentina, you had Mercado Libre, and that's pretty much good for all South America. You have Craigslist in US and some other countries. Something like that is good for looking up before making a more expensive purchase. You may want to check the second-hand market for stuff. Other places here in UK, there's Heinnie.com, which was suggested to me, and it's actually a pretty nice place for knives, survival stuff and such. Let me write that down here. It's Heinnie.com. Well, I'll just leave the link under there in the comments for you guys to go if you're in the UK and you're looking for some of the stuff that's not available to you. What else? Furthermore, I face similar problems regarding many other items you suggest. They can only be shipped to US. Well, the thing is, especially these days, I've noticed that on eBay they're not sending stuff to Greece that much. Many dealers are saying that they're not shipping to US, to Greece and some other countries because they've been having problems with people, making fraud. They just say they didn't receive the item and they actually did. So it happened as well in Argentina and many places in South America. Many dealers on eBay will not send to you. So you have to look around until you find someone that will. For example, I thought the solar radio mobile phone charger was a great idea, but the products recommended can only be found in Amazon. A solar radio mobile phone charger thing, you've probably seen it. It has the dynamo lever for charging, also the solar panel. They may not be great, but at least it's something so as to recharge a phone, at least to some extent. Maybe a dedicated solar panel is a better idea if in your location you have good amount of sunlight in general. But yeah, those things are great. Well, he mentions a couple more. He mentions the Eton, and he mentions another one called Aquaburn, which I told him to go for this one because it had better reputation. Which one would you suggest? I'm also interested in a generator like the Black & Decker one you advertised, but this product is no longer available. So in order to keep this email short, maybe you could do a post, some of the items and products. Yes, basically he's mentioning some of the stuff that he's not finding. I know that I'm probably asking for too much. No, you're not, dude, because this kind of thing requires a lot of time research. But since things are really bad in Greece and all of the other pig countries, I suppose I think Europe readers will find the post extremely helpful. I'll do that post. Just give me a few days. As you say, it takes a bit of time, but I'll do it and give you some other places to go looking for stuff. Right? Again, eBay, dude. It's eBay where you find most of the stuff. Just finding a dealer that's willing to ship to your location. I also have a few more questions. One more thing about this. I understand that eventually it's going to be harder for imports to get there. Right now in Argentina, there's a huge problem with importation. It was getting worse and worse as time went by. So it is understandable to think that eventually you will have problems in any of these countries, Greece, Spain, or any other country that's struggling financially, in the border of a possible economic collapse. If it does get that bad, it's understandable, and it's very likely that you will be having problems getting stuff inside the country. It's going to be getting stopped by customs. It's going to be getting taxed heavily, maybe too much for you to actually buy it. I also have more questions for you. Alright, what about heating for your house? I live in an area where it gets really cold during the winter, so we need heat, but oil is getting really expensive, so what should I use instead of it? Is a fireplace a good idea? What about using pellets? A friend suggested that I should use a couple of inverters, air conditioners, which are cheaper than using oil, but not cheap. What happens if there is no electricity? Well, you do want to have alternatives, so as to, for example, if you have natural gas for heating, you want to also have electric heaters as well. If not, if you can have a wood burning stove, those are great. I mean, those are fabulous. If you have any chance at all of installing a wood burning stove, especially if it's one that also allows you to cook as well, the wood burning stoves, those are great because they do heat a lot. They are much more efficient than just a fireplace. A fireplace is very inefficient in the amount of fuel it uses and the amount of heat you get out of it. Most of it just goes through the chimney. Instead, a wood burning stove, because of all the iron, the mass it has, that heats up with a relatively small amount of wood, you get lots of calories from it. So if you have any chance at all, if you have a fireplace already, you already have the exhaust for it, and I'm sure it's not going to be much of a problem having one of those, a wood burning stove installed. Now they generally are expensive and generally not cheap. You might want to look into the second-hand market, the used market, and maybe find one there, or maybe some of the antique stores sell one. But in any case, it is a good investment. I think it's a very good idea. I've had used several of them. I like the nicer ones, the ones that are in Argentina. They're called cocina económica, which is translated would be economic cooking or economic stove. Well, that's because you can do so much with it, and you will probably be able to scrounge wood here and there in one way or another. So it's a good idea, even if you have already an electric heating system on, or if you're using heating oil. It's still a good idea to have one of those, because in case it gets, as our friend here from Greece says, if it gets too expensive, or if you want to complement one with the other, whenever you find a cheaper source of fuel. About the pellet stove, which he mentioned, the thing with the pellets is that the ones that only work with pellets kind of limit you on the range of what you can actually throw in there. So it's better if you have one that works both with wood and pellets. Unless in your circumstance you have a huge amount of the stuff available, or it's very cheap, I will always suggest having something that burns both wood or pellets or wood alone. What about electricity? Well, yes. Something else that I mentioned to him is that when it gets expensive, one of the things that you can do so as to reduce your heating bill quite a bit is installing on the windows the insulating films and the draft blockers on the sides of the windows and doors. Anything you can do so as to maximize your heat preservation, it's gonna be saving you money. Another thing, if you have any rooms that you're not using, he mentions later on in the letter that his parents have a bigger house and just for 2 people. Well, in that case, it's good to close those doors, close the doors of the rooms you're not using. Just doing that, sometimes people don't quite understand it. Just closing the doors of the rooms you're not using and turning the heat off in those radiators in those rooms, it's going to be reducing significantly the size of your heating space, and it's going to be saving you a lot of money and keeping it nice and warm with less amount of expenditure. When we first moved in, we had a couple of problems with the boiler, and for a couple of days we had to get by with just 2 little electric space heaters, the ones that have oil inside. What we did was we all slept in one room in the master bedroom. My wife and my kids, we all slept there all together, and it was okay. You know, if you reduce the space that needs to be heated, you get by better. Of course, when you then leave it, and especially in the dead of winter, it's gonna be your house is gonna be pretty much very hard to get by in the rest of the places. But at least you will have that room that is it's nice for being warm and sleeping okay. Going on with the letter. I own a small car, a second-hand Toyota Yaris, which is great for city traffic. Should I keep it or should I swap it for something else like a cheap Jeep, for example? Again, one of the cases in which reality doesn't go along with the fantasies of some people. If you go online and you look bug out vehicle, survival vehicle, whatever, usually you will see a huge 4x4 truck that looks awesome and it's probably lots of fun to drive around in the mud and such. How realistic is that for a real economic collapse? Well, if you're not evacuating through through the woods and through extremely tough terrain, usually the problem with your vehicle is the expense of keeping it fueled and driving around. Those huge 4x4 trucks that you sometimes see that are very nice and all, and they can get you to places that other vehicles won't, but for everyday driving they are quite expensive. Alright, and if you're not using that vehicle, you will usually use some other vehicle like this guy's Toyota Yaris, and you will have that 4x4 bug out super vehicle stuck in your garage and driving around with this other vehicle. Alright, what happens with that? Because of my own experience, I can tell you that as things start getting much worse, you will see more rioting on the streets, more protesting on the streets. Usually you end up getting used to it. Now, it is a pain in the neck to live in those conditions. I was completely fed up and about to lose it because of all the road blocking, the protesting, and all that junk that just didn't allow you to move freely on the streets of Buenos Aires. It's still going on. I'm sure someone is going to be going ballistic one day, going to a tower and shooting all these guys, because it just drives you nuts that you're just driving on the street, all of a sudden they block your street. These guys with their face covered with batons or weapons or whatever, they block your street and you're not able to move anymore. Now, having a vehicle that is fuel effective during an economic downturn such as this one, especially my friend in Greece, yes, you're far better off with a vehicle that is cheap to move around with. Your pocket is one of your main concerns. Eventually, security will be a huge concern as well. I know it's already bad in Greece. I know crime has gone up considerably. I think it could still get worse. All right, so one of the things that you learn, for example, in Argentina, if you ask any Argentine what is the 2 things that concerns him the most, the first one is going to be security, the fear of getting hurt on the street, because it happens so often. When you have 10-15 people getting shot every day because of the crime going on, it is a concern. You are worried of becoming a victim. The second one is the financial factor, the economy, the inflation, prices going up, and your work not being enough so as to keep you going on. It's frustrating and it's irritating to see that your wages go down. Either they go down directly or their purchasing power goes down because of the inflation. Same results nonetheless. It's very hard to cope with that. It causes lots of mental anguish, lots of stress. So it is a huge deal. A vehicle that is cheap to move around with is, of course, that's what you need. Now, at the same time, because of what I saw, and based on my experience with all these roadblocks and problems on traffic and such, sometimes, especially if it gets ugly and you have to leave the place right away, if someone starts shooting, you do want a vehicle that has better ground clearance than the average sedan. You do want a vehicle that, in case you need it, you are able to go off-road with it. When all these things happen, I would see sometimes the guys with 4x4 trucks or some other four-wheel drive vehicle, they would just go up on the sidewalk and get out of there, or if there was grass or mud on the side, they would just go through that. And the guys with the two-wheel drives or the typical sedans, they wouldn't be able to, they were stuck. So I do think that a smaller four-wheel drive vehicle, something that is four-wheel drive but still fuel efficient to some degree, the more fuel efficient the better. You're not going to be doing lots of off-roading, all right? You're not going to be purposely looking for off-road stuff with your vehicle when that vehicle is specifically for driving around and just getting you out of some specific problems. It's going to be rather limited, the amount of off-roading that you're going to be using. But in those specific circumstances, having a bit more ground clearance and having that four-wheel drive capability is really valuable. What I did when I moved here, I bought a Honda CRV, like typical soccer mom vehicle. Well, it's one of the vehicles that I think cover what I want. It has a good amount of space inside. It has a four-wheel drive capability when I need it, a nice amount of ground clearance, at least enough for getting up on the sidewalks and going over the boulevards and avoiding problem if I ever come to find it. It is not the most fuel efficient vehicle. It's about 20 to 25 gallons per mile. 20 to 23, 25 gallons per mile, depending on if I'm driving on the city or on the highways. Now, the thing is that I don't do that much driving, so it's not hitting me that much. For me, it's the ideal compromise between enough capabilities. If I need it right there, I have it in the vehicle that I'm driving. I don't have my crazy bug-out vehicle and my little car isn't able to do anything. So it's like a compromise between the both. If you have the money for it, and go crazy, buy yourself if I had the money for it, I would buy an armored vehicle and have that parked in my garage. I think it's gonna be more, if there's really problems, if it gets really bad, and you're talking about civil war and such, having an armored vehicle, that would be great. But just mentioning, it's something that it has both a good amount of ground clearance, four-wheel drive capability, a good amount of size, and it's not that expensive to drive around. That's quite what you're looking at. Now, if you're still struggling economically, just stick with your car. Stick with your Toyota. Toyota and Honda are the two brands, basically the only two brands that I would buy. Those are vehicles that last forever. They're very reliable, they're cheap to repair, popular, so mechanics know how to work with them. Toyota and Honda are usually the ones that I'd go for. I recently inherited a farm, but it's a small farm, so there's no way you can live off the land. Well, living off the land is usually another of the many fantasies out there. It's very hard to live off the land. Even if you're a farmer, just go ask your friendly farmer. It's usually, for farmers, it's a full-time job. If you don't have any I have family members that are farmers. Some of my family, I have family in Spain, right here. Family in Spain that they are farmers. They were farmers for centuries, all right? They're not getting started right now. Ask those guys if it's easy to live off the land, even if you have a farm. It's not by any means, all right? So living off the land, you may grow some stuff, you may supplement your diet, and that's great. And especially if you have fun, if you like it and you like healthy stuff, you get a special satisfaction from growing your own stuff. It's awesome. But thinking that the solution to an economic collapse is becoming a farmer, it simply means that you haven't understand anything. You haven't even done proper research and learned from other people's experience. All right, it's not only me saying it because of what I've seen in my country. It's what you learn from studying what happened in Spain, studying what happened in other countries where things went bad and people had to struggle to survive. You have certain advantages in a farm. Of course that's a given, but it's not in no way is it the final solution to all shit hit the fan events or economic collapses, is having a farm by any means. So there's no way I can live off the land, of course not. Furthermore, this farm is located pretty far away. It's 30 minutes drive by car, so you need to burn a lot of fuel every day. Well, this is what I'm talking about, realistic stuff. This guy is having a real problem. He has this land. He didn't even have to buy it. He inherited, but he still has the problem of being far from where he works and studies. Should I keep this farm or should I sell it? If I should sell it, should I sell it now or later? I wouldn't sell it. I think that especially if you inherit it, it's not only about a piece of real estate. It's family. It's your own blood. It's your heritage. It's who you are. And dude, it's a farm. You have it. Why sell it? Try making it as useful for you as possible, maybe working on it on the weekends if you cannot afford to live there and drive back and forth all the time. He later mentioned that he's studying business administration, but he's also a web designer, so in his case he could work from home doing web design stuff. If he ends up working from home, then this farm may be just what he's looking for. I'm sure it's a nice enough place. And I mean, he already has it. He inherited it. So no, I wouldn't. Especially, and about selling it or not, I wouldn't sell it. Especially not now. Especially not now because Greece is struggling so much. And eventually, everything gets by. Everything passes eventually, and this will pass as well. Greece will not become a hole in planet Earth and just disappear. It's eventually things will turn upside down, and places that were better off one day are gonna be struggling more, and the ones that were struggling will be again doing better. This is guys, this is life. This is the world we live in. In Spain, which is now going through very tough times, just a few years ago was the place where everyone was going. There was tons of job and work in Spain. People were getting paid for anything. Anyone was making good money in Spain. Before that, it was the place where my grandparents came from. My grandparents, they came from Spain because there was a civil war going on. It was very hard. Yeah, they were farmers, and they still find it hard to live there. And thousands, millions of Spaniards left Spain during the civil war, and then their children came back because the places they had gone for example, Argentina, were struggling as well. So they came back to Spain as well, which was doing well economically. And later down the road, this happens. What you see now, the economic problems Spain is seeing with 25-30% unemployment. It's the way the world is, especially in places that haven't quite settled or had enough centuries of stability. It's more common, I suppose. But what I've learned is that you never have 100% guarantee that this is not going to be happening to you in your lifetime. It's very probable that you will see this or some other event that requires you to be better prepared than the average person. Anything that you do in terms of preparedness to improve yourself as much as possible, that's always great. So don't sell it, dude. Just keep it, work on it, rent it, do whatever, but don't sell your heritage farm. My parents have suggested that I should invest all the money I have saved all my life in buying an old house that is for sale nearby and live there. But I know nothing about farm life, and my friends are living in the city, not in the village. What is your opinion? I'm thinking of buying a few gold coins with my savings. Buying a few gold coins with your savings, especially if you have money in a bank in Greece, please take it out of the of the bank and buy a few gold coins. It's far better off than just sitting in a bank in Greece. I wouldn't have. Let me put it this way. I wouldn't have my money in a bank in Greece right now. Even in Spain, I would be quite hesitant to have all my money in the bank in Spain right now. Any of these countries are the situation in Europe in general is quite difficult. These are times when Greece is gonna be having to get out of the euro one way or another, and soon enough I think Spain is gonna be following. How it's gonna be going down exactly, I cannot tell you. I don't know, but I do know that it's bad enough that it's quite a possibility. So it's the time when I wouldn't have my money in these banks, especially not all my money by any means. All right. I mean, even having it at hand, or even better, about having gold instead of having a percentage at least of that money in gold instead of having it in a bank, I think it's a better idea. What about buying? Well, here is where I quite don't understand, because he has a farm that he inherited, but he's thinking of buying a house near it. So maybe he's referring to having land instead of having an actual farm. In that case, well, I don't think that it's that bad of an idea. If you already have land there and you would be adding a house to it, especially in the current situation, I think that if you come by a good price for a house, given the actual circumstances that Greece is going through right now, if you get it for a good price and you're able to have that house next to the land or the farm you inherited, that would be great. I'm currently working as a web designer, and I'm studying business administration at the university. Do you think that this job, business administration, will provide me with enough money in the future? Yes, I think it will, if you're smart enough and you have added value, such as what you obviously have, which is a second language. So yes, if you're smart, you have a second language as well, you have more tools than the average person. Guys, I'm speaking in English, even though I'm from Argentina. That's the kind of added value I'm talking about. If not, will it be able to find a job abroad? Well, lots of people are leaving Greece right now. If you want to add, you have already English, which opens your possibilities quite a bit. You have UK, which is a possibility for you right now, especially being from Greece. You have UK, man. That's also a possibility for you. You have Canada. If you find jobs and you find a job in US and someone gets you a visa for US, dude, I would go to US if possible. What about web design? I don't have a degree for it, but I am self-trained. Which one is a better option for me? I'm thinking business administration, since this is what I'm studying, but you never know. Well, I would suggest keep working on getting your degree on business administration, especially if you have English as a second language. You will be able to find a job somewhere eventually. You have your European citizenship, which opens your spectrum quite a bit. So those are all good things. Given the economic situation going on right now in Europe, I would think about if you could add another language. If you could add German. Germany is doing pretty well. You know, I think that eventually Europe will all go down in a way that it's focused around Germany. So if you find a way of, if you learn a second language, a third language in your case, German as another language, that would be a huge added value for you. And about work and such, one of the things that we learned from what happened in Argentina is that when people lost their jobs, they struggled in any way possible. We saw the barter clubs, which I wouldn't wish on anyone to end up bartering for a living. But one of the things that we saw that is something that may be of use for you is people starting their own line of works. Whatever it is that they were, doctors or accountants or lawyers, starting your own practice, starting your own firm in any way. You already mentioned that you have skills with web design. If you start your own web design gig, you may be able to make a few extra bucks. If you eventually end up struggling with your official work as business administration, you have this skill. And the good thing about this is that you can basically work for anyone around the world because of the kind of job that it is, web design. So having your website offering your services, even if you have some other job, just don't lose that. Don't lose that bit of independence that gives you that possibility in case of a downturn. My parents live in an old but good house by themselves. I rent a house in another city where my university is. My problem with my parents' house is that it's too big. It's a 2-story house which means that they pay a lot of taxes for it, but there's only 2 people living in it. Do you think they should sell this house and buy a smaller one, or maybe accommodate some friends, relatives who will become too poor to have a house for themselves in the future? We saw this in Argentina, people moving back with the parents. One of the common jokes is in the survival community is you're probably a 40-year-old living in your mom's basement. Well, guys, that's sometimes what ends up happening. Sometimes when you lose it all, you end up living in your mom's basement once again. Now, the truth is, if you have a big house, it's cheaper for everyone to chip in and live there. The old folks, the kids working, bringing income as well, everyone bringing some income and living in one house. It's usually better on the pocket during economic downturns or during an economic collapse. It's usually better. Everyone working together, chipping in, the old folks doing their part. Maybe they have their retirement, maybe they just look after kids and save you money on daycare or whatever. There's always more possibilities when you're all living together. Is it ideal? By hell no, I wouldn't want to live with my parents. But if I had to, I would do it. I understand that that's what thousands of people ended up doing that, guys. Why not? If you have no other option, it might as well be you. Okay, so if you understand that as a possibility, if your income is not allowing you to live on your own anymore and you have your parents to go to, you do what you have to do to get by. Would I recommend doing it? It depends. Again, my friend in Greece, it depends on if your parents they like that house and they're doing well there. Why sell it? Life, as I said in one of the replies in the forum, life is just too short to not do what it is that you like doing. If you like the house, stick with the house. Now, if you cannot pay for it anymore, then I might suggest moving to a smaller house, some house that you still like, selling that house, buying a smaller house and maybe another a studio or small apartment so as to rent and have more money. That's also a good idea, a possibility. I know nothing about gardening, fixing things, etc. Is it easy worth the effort to learn those type of skills? You can learn anything, my friend. What is the best way to learn them? Through experience. Go online. You have tons, especially for gardening. There's good books. Some people in the blog suggested in the comments a book as well. In fairfeld.com. There's a comment where someone suggested a good book for gardening. My mother recently told me that she's interested in taking up gardening, and since there is a terrace in my parents' house, maybe she could plant a few seeds, not as a way of living, but maybe as a good way to save a few euros by producing something yourself instead of buying it. Yes, absolutely. It would also be good way for my mother to pass the time since she recently retired from work. Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. That's a great way of spending your time, especially if you enjoy this. If you're thinking of doing it in practical terms, you might find something that is more efficient, that's getting you more money for your time invested. It's more sometimes it's generally speaking, it's not the soundest financial thing to do, to start working the land and make a living out of that, all right? But if that's a way of you for spending, for your mother especially, that she enjoys that activity, she's growing her own food produces, why not? By all means. My wife, she loves this stuff. She loves gardening. She basically throws something and it grows on its own. I don't know why. She has that ability, that she loves doing it. So why not do that if you like it? I would like your opinion on how easy it is to plant seeds on a terrace. Well, you can do it. I think it's rather easy. I've never had a problem planting anything when I lived in an apartment. When I lived in a house, we had a few plants here and there. What I suggest doing is planting trees that give you fruits, with lemons, apples, anything that grows. That's a huge investment, especially since you have your land now. I would suggest planting lots of fruit producing trees and trees for timber as well. That's a great investment that you can do right now, especially since you just got the place. I would plant all over it. Keep a sound perimeter around the house. That's basically for security. You don't want any place that they can hide near the house, so keep a reasonable perimeter around the house with nothing planted on it. But other than that, go crazy and plant as much stuff as you want. You can you combine that, for example, with with certain berries that have a thorny bush. It both produces food and it works as a good perimeter as well. Start doing that, research that. In my blog there's tons of articles and posts about doing such a thing. Plant seeds on a terrace. How safe is it from thieves, and what kind of seeds would you suggest easy to plant edible? Thanks for your help, Fairfeld. Your blog is great. Thanks, George. It basically comes down to what you like growing and what is possible to grow in your location. I have absolutely no idea which is your best call. Just do a bit of research and find out what is gonna be growing well in your location, and combine that with things that you actually like. You mentioned the problem of thieves. This is a realistic problem that you're gonna be having sooner rather than later, especially how things are going in Greece, especially in other places as well. You will have thieves, you will have people stealing from you. You have to, I would suggest, as I said before, having those trees producing for you, that's great. I would limit your orchard to something small, easy to control and easy to defend, and easy to keep within the secure perimeter. All right, if you have a greenhouse, that's also a good idea. It is a bit better protected. If not, work with certain bushes, certain thorny vegetation, so as to work a perimeter around your orchard so you don't have that much of a problem. But you basically cannot avoid it. Anything, especially in a farm, anything that's being produced and grown, you will have problems with thieves. More or less, to a greater or lesser degree, it is a problem. In Argentina, it was a huge problem, I can tell you that much. My friends that had farms, they would have always problems with people stealing their crops. So my suggestion is that keeping it small, keeping it easy to control, close to the home for the orchard that you're going to be working or your mother is going to be working on mostly. That's what I suggest in terms of avoiding this problem. Folks, almost an hour, and as I said, it was going to be a long video, but I hope I covered some stuff. Anything else that you'd like me to cover, any other topics that you want me talking about, just send me a comment and I'll cover it. Again, thanks for watching the video. If you're liking this stuff, I'm going to be doing more of it for sure, so consider subscribing as well. I'm going to be combining this with the gear review, the knife stuff, but I will answer all these questions and I will cover these topics, because I know that especially in Europe right now, people are going through tough times, and if they want to have my voice, my experience in all this, by all means. Guys, take care and have a great weekend.